The first bullet punched through Marcus Reed's side before his brain could even register the gunfire. The second ripped through his shoulder, spinning him sideways as hot blood sprayed across white marble tiles. The third buried itself in his back, right between his shoulder blades, as he dove forward, wrapping his body around the screaming 6-year-old girl like a human shield. 3 bullets, 3 chances to die. And Marcus Reed, a janitor who made $11.50 an hour, pushing a cleaning cart through Chicago's most prestigious medical research tower, didn't hesitate for a single second. The penthouse floor of Park Biomedical erupted into chaos. Smoke grenades hissed poison across floors that cost more than Marcus would earn in 10 lifetimes. Shattered glass from floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked Lake Michigan glittered like scattered diamonds in the emergency lighting. 3 masked gunmen in black tactical gear swept through the private pediatric wing with military precision, their automatic weapons hunting for one target. Soo Min Park, 6 years old, daughter of Hana Park, the Korean-American billionaire whose face graced the covers of Forbes, Bloomberg, and Time magazine. Marcus had been invisible his entire life. No family, no emergency contact, no one who would notice if he simply stopped showing up to work one day. For 11 months, he'd cleaned these floors after midnight, emptying trash cans in offices where people earned more in bonuses than he'd see in a decade. He was furniture, background noise, the help. But Soo Min had seen him. Every single night, that little girl with the bright eyes and the gap-toothed smile had waved at him through the glass partition of the pediatric wing, where she waited for her mother to finish late meetings. She'd drawn him pictures, learned his name, asked him questions about his favorite colors and whether he liked dinosaurs or robots better. She was the only person in that entire building who knew he existed. And when those windows exploded inward, when those gunmen came for her, Marcus's body moved on pure instinct. Not for glory, not for reward. For a little girl who waved at janitors. The blood pooling beneath him was warm and spreading fast. His vision flickered at the edges, consciousness slipping away like water through fingers. But he could feel her trembling against his chest, alive, breathing, sobbing into his uniform. That was enough. When Hana Park burst through the stairwell door with her private security team, 37 seconds later, she found her daughter screaming, but untouched. And she found the janitor, whose name she'd never bothered to learn, bleeding out on her pristine marble floors. What happened next would shatter every expectation of power, class, and love. Because Hana Park didn't just save Marcus Reed's life, she made him untouchable, and the billionaire's next words would send shockwaves through Chicago's elite, Manhattan's boardrooms, and Seoul's most powerful families. Marry me. If you're already hooked by Marcus's sacrifice, smash that subscribe button and hit that notification bell. Because what Hana Park does to protect this man will leave you absolutely breathless. 6 months before the bullets. Marcus Reed's alarm went off at 4:47 p.m., the same time it had for the past 11 months. He didn't need it. His body had learned to wake 13 minutes before the sound. But he kept it set anyway. Routine was the only structure poverty allowed him. His studio apartment in Englewood sat above a Dominican grocery store on the south side of Chicago, the kind of neighborhood where police sirens served as background music, and gunshots were weather reports. $400 a month for 300 square feet, a hot plate that worked sometimes, and a bathroom he shared with the elderly woman next door. Marcus showered in cold water. The building's boiler had been broken since August, and dressed in the same khaki pants and white undershirt he wore every day. His work uniform waited in his locker at Park Biomedical. He couldn't afford to get it dirty on the L train. The red line to the loop took 47 minutes on a good day. Marcus stood the entire way, his hand wrapped around the metal pole, watching Chicago transform outside the scratched windows. Englewood's boarded-up storefronts gave way to Bronzeville's brownstones, then to the gleaming towers of downtown, where money lived and breathed in buildings that touched the clouds. Park Biomedical rose 43 stories above Michigan Avenue, a monument to glass and steel and ambition. Marcus entered through the service entrance on Lower Wacker Drive, swiped his badge, and disappeared into the bowels of the building where the invisible people worked. Marcus, Darnell Williams, the night shift supervisor, nodded from behind his desk without looking up from his phone. Floor 42 tonight. The big boss is working late again. Don't touch anything on her desk. The big boss, Hannah Park. Marcus had seen her exactly 3 times in 11 months. Once in the elevator, where she'd been on her phone speaking rapid Korean, her eyes never registering his presence. Once in the hallway, where she'd walked past him like he was part of the wall. And once through the glass of her corner office, where she'd stood silhouetted against the Chicago skyline like she owned it, which, in many ways, she did. Hannah Park was 41 years old, though she looked a decade younger. Korean-American, MIT graduate, Stanford MBA, founder and CEO of Park Biomedical Technologies, a biotech firm valued at $12 billion. Her patents in gene therapy had revolutionized cancer treatment. Her political connections stretched from Chicago's City Hall to Washington's Capitol Hill. Her face had appeared on the cover of every major business publication in America. She was the kind of woman who shaped the world. Marcus was the kind of man who cleaned up after it. He pushed his cart into the service elevator, pressed 42, and leaned against the wall as the floors climbed. His body ached. It always ached these days. The cumulative weight of 53 years spent doing work that ground men down to nothing. His knees protested. His lower back burned with the memory of 1,000 heavy trash bags. His hands were calloused so thick he could barely feel the cold anymore. But the job paid $14 an hour, plus benefits, plus the kind of anonymity that kept him safe. Some men had reasons to stay invisible. Marcus stepped onto the 42nd floor at 11:47 p.m., pulling his cart behind him. The executive suite sprawled across the entire floor. Corner offices with panoramic views, conference rooms with Italian leather chairs, a private kitchen stocked with food that cost more than his weekly groceries. And at the far end of the floor, behind a glass partition etched with the Park Biomedical logo, sat the private pediatric wing. Soo-Min Park. Marcus spotted her immediately. She was curled up on a small bed near the window, surrounded by stuffed animals and picture books, her dark hair spread across a silk pillowcase. A night nurse sat in the corner, scrolling through her tablet, barely awake. The pediatric wing existed because Hannah Park worked 16-hour days and refused to let her daughter stay home with nannies. So she'd built a private medical suite on her executive floor, complete with doctors on call, educational tutors, and everything a 6-year-old could need. Everything except a mother who came home at reasonable hours. Marcus began his routine. Empty the executive trash cans, vacuum the conference rooms, wipe down the kitchen surfaces, scrub the bathrooms until they gleamed. He moved silently, invisibly, the way he'd learned to move through a world that didn't see him. But when he passed the pediatric wing, something made him pause. Soo-Min was awake. She was sitting up in her bed, watching him through the glass with wide, curious eyes. When their gazes met, she smiled, the kind of pure, uncomplicated smile that only children could give. And then she waved. Marcus froze. In 11 months, no one on this floor had acknowledged his existence. Not the executives, not the assistants, not even the security guards who shared his socio-economic universe. But this little girl waved at him like he was the most interesting person she'd seen all day. Slowly, almost against his will, Marcus raised his hand and waved back. Su-min's smile widened. She pressed her palm against the glass, fingers spread. Marcus looked around. The night nurse was still absorbed in her tablet. No one was watching. No one would know. He walked to the glass and pressed his palm against hers, separated by an inch of partition. "I'm Su-min," she mouthed through the glass. "What's your name?" "Marcus," he mouthed back. "Hi, Marcus," she grinned. "Do you like robots or dinosaurs better?" And for the first time in more years than he could remember, Marcus Reed laughed. He didn't know it then, but that laugh had just set into motion a chain of events that would bring bullets, blood, and billionaires crashing into his invisible life. 11 months later. The attack came at 11:52 p.m. on a Thursday in March, 8 minutes before Marcus would have finished his shift, and disappeared back into the anonymous Chicago night. He was mopping the executive break room when he heard it. Glass. Shattering. Not the accidental drop of a coffee mug. This was explosive, violent, the sound of something large and deliberate destroying something fragile and expensive. Then shouting. Then gunfire. Marcus dropped the mop. His body moved before his mind caught up. 40 years of survival instinct, overriding the rational voice that screamed at him to hide, to run, to protect himself the way invisible men were supposed to. But he wasn't running away. He was running toward the pediatric wing. The hallway stretched before him like a nightmare, the emergency lights casting everything in bloody red. He could hear more shots now, short, controlled bursts from automatic weapons, professional, military. This wasn't a robbery. This was an extraction. They were here, for the girl. Marcus rounded the corner and saw them. 3 men in black tactical gear, faces covered by balaclavas, moving with terrifying coordination toward the glass partition of the pediatric wing. The night nurse was already down, crumpled against the wall with a dark stain spreading across her chest. 2 security guards lay motionless near the elevator bank, their weapons still holstered. And Su-min was standing in the middle of the pediatric suite, frozen in terror, her favorite stuffed elephant clutched to her chest. She was wearing pink pajamas with cartoon clouds on them. Her bare feet were small against the cold floor. She looked exactly like what she was, a 6-year-old child with no understanding of why men with guns had come for her. The lead gunman raised his weapon. No! Marcus didn't recognize his own voice. He didn't recognize his own body as it launched across the hallway, covering the distance between them in seconds that felt like hours. He didn't recognize the man who threw himself between automatic gunfire and a child who wasn't his. The first bullet hit his side. White-hot agony. The kind of pain that erased thought, erased identity, erased everything except the primal need to keep moving. Marcus stumbled but didn't stop. He grabbed Su-min, wrapped his body around her, turned his back to the gunfire. The second bullet punched through his shoulder. His arm went numb. Useless. But his other arm held tight to the trembling girl. Pressing her face against his chest so she couldn't see the violence, couldn't see the blood now soaking through his uniform. The third bullet buried itself in his back. Marcus's legs gave out. He crashed to the floor, still wrapped around Su-min, still shielding her with every ounce of flesh and bone he had left. The marble was cold against his face. The blood was warm, pooling beneath him, spreading faster than seemed possible. "Freeze! Security! Drop your weapons!" More shouting, more gunfire. Marcus couldn't process it anymore. The world was fading at the edges, sounds growing distant and distorted, like he was sinking underwater. But he could still feel Su-min's heart hammering against his chest. Alive. She was alive. That was enough. Hana Park had been in a video conference with investors in Seoul when her security team burst through the door. She didn't remember the next 3 minutes. Didn't remember running through hallways in her Louboutin heels. Didn't remember screaming her daughter's name. Didn't remember the elevator ride that felt like a century. What she remembered was the blood. So much blood. Red pools spreading across white marble, turning her executive floor into a crime scene. Bodies everywhere. Her security guards, her employees, the gunmen who'd been neutralized by her rapid response team. And in the center of it all, her daughter. Su-min was screaming, covered in blood that wasn't hers, clutching a man Hana didn't recognize, a man in a janitor's uniform, a man who wasn't moving. "Mommy! Mommy, help him! Marcus saved me! Help him!" Marcus. The name meant nothing to Hana. She'd never learned the names of her cleaning staff. They were background noise, invisible infrastructure, the people who kept her world running so she could focus on things that mattered. But this man had taken 3 bullets for her daughter. This invisible man had done what her $1 million security system couldn't. "Get him to surgery," Hana ordered, her voice cold and controlled, despite the chaos inside her. "Now. I don't care what it costs. I don't care if you have to fly in every specialist in the country. Save him." The next 48 hours blurred together. Surgeons, lawyers, police, federal agents. Hana handled it all with the ruthless efficiency that had built her empire, delegating and directing while never leaving the hospital wing where Marcus Reed fought for his life. The media never got the story. Hane's PR team killed it before the first tweet could go viral. A security incident at Park Biomedical. No serious injuries. Investigation ongoing. The journalists who pressed too hard received phone calls from lawyers whose hourly rates exceeded their annual salaries. Money could buy silence, but it couldn't buy Marcus Reed's survival. On the 3rd day, his heart stopped twice. On the 4th day, the doctors warned Hana that even if he lived, the damage was extensive, permanent, life-altering. On the 5th day, Marcus Reed opened his eyes, and the first thing he saw was Hana Park sitting beside his bed. Not the billionaire, not the CEO, not the woman whose face appeared on magazine covers and investor presentations. Just a mother who owed him everything. "You saved my daughter," she said quietly. Marcus tried to speak, failed, tried again. "She... okay?" Hana nodded, and for the first time in longer than she could remember, tears rolled down her cheeks. "She's okay. Because of you." The threats started before Marcus could sit up on his own. The first one arrived in a flower arrangement, a beautiful bouquet of white lilies with a card that read, "The janitor should have stayed invisible." Hospital security intercepted it before it reached his room. But Hana saw the card, and something cold settled in her stomach. The second threat came through her private email, an address known only to her inner circle. A single photograph of Marcus's hospital room, taken from outside the window. 15th floor, from a building across the street. Attached message, "Your witness won't testify." The third threat was more direct. Someone tried to enter Marcus's room at 3 a.m., dressed in hospital scrubs, carrying a syringe filled with enough potassium chloride to stop a heart in seconds. Hana's private security, now stationed 24 hours a day, stopped him before he reached the door. He died in custody before they could extract information. Professional, organized. Someone with significant resources wanted Marcus Reed dead. Hana sat in her private office at Park Biomedical, staring at the Chicago skyline without seeing it. The FBI had taken over the investigation, but their progress was frustratingly slow. The gunmen who'd attacked her building were dead or disappeared. The trail led to shell companies in the Cayman Islands, to encrypted communications, to dead ends. But Hana hadn't built a $12 billion empire by waiting for others to solve her problems. She'd made calls, called in favors, activated networks that existed in the shadows of legitimate business, and the picture that emerged was terrifying. The attack hadn't been random. Someone in her own company had orchestrated it, a hostile takeover attempt disguised as a kidnapping. Take Sue Min, force Hana to sign over controlling shares, dispose of witnesses. Marcus Reed had seen faces, survived. And somewhere in his memory might be the evidence that could bring down very powerful people, which made him the most dangerous man in Chicago and the most vulnerable. Marcus was awake when Hana entered his room that evening. He looked better than he had a week ago, though better was relative. His skin was still gray. His movements were still careful, limited by the tubes and monitors and the healing wounds that would scar him forever. But his eyes were clear and aware. "Mrs. Park." His voice was rough, unused. "You shouldn't be here. My hospital. My rules." She pulled a chair closer to his bed and sat, crossing her legs with the practiced elegance of a woman who'd commanded boardrooms on 3 continents. "We need to talk." "About the flowers?" Hana's eyebrows rose. "You know about that?" "Your security isn't as subtle as they think. I've been watching them watch me." He shifted painfully against his pillows. "Someone wants me dead. Someone who knows I saw their faces." "Yes. And you're here because you feel guilty. I'm here because I need to keep you alive." Marcus studied her, really studied her, in a way that made Hana uncomfortable. She wasn't used to being seen. She was used to being obeyed, admired, feared. But this man looked at her like she was a puzzle he was trying to solve. "Why?" he asked simply. "Because you saved my daughter." "That's not what I mean." He winced, adjusting his position. "Why do you need to keep me alive? You have lawyers, security, enough money to hide me on a private island for the rest of my life. Why are you personally sitting in my hospital room at—" He glanced at the wall clock. 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. Hana was silent for a long moment. Then she told him the truth. "Because the people who tried to take my daughter are inside my company. They have access to everything, my security protocols, my safe houses, my travel schedules. If I hide you, they'll find you. If I give you money, they'll trace it. If I send you to the police, they have people there too." "Then what?" Hana stood, walked to the window. Chicago sprawled beneath them, glittering and cold. A city of power and money and violence dressed in pretty lights. "There's only one thing I can do that they won't expect. One move that gives you legitimate protection, legal standing, a position they can't touch without exposing themselves." She turned to face him. "Marry me." The words hung in the air like smoke after an explosion. Marcus stared at her. Then, incredibly, he laughed. A painful, wheezing sound that made him clutch his bandaged side. You're serious. I'm always serious. Mrs. Park. Hana. He shook his head slowly. I'm a janitor. I make $14 an hour. I live above a grocery store in Englewood. I don't have health insurance. Well, I didn't until your bullets. None of that matters. It matters to me. His voice hardened. I'm not a charity case. I'm not some stray dog you picked up off the street because it did a trick. That's not what this is. Then what is it? Because from where I'm lying, it sounds like a rich woman trying to buy a solution to her problem with a human being. Hana's jaw tightened. She wasn't used to being challenged, wasn't used to anyone pushing back. But something in Marcus's resistance stirred respect she hadn't expected. It's protection, she said carefully. For both of us. A marriage means you become legally tied to me. My lawyers become your lawyers. My security becomes your security. Anyone who tries to touch you would be attacking a member of the Park family. The scrutiny alone would destroy them. And what do I have to do? Survive. Testify when the time comes. Help me identify the people who tried to take my daughter. She paused. That's all. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then, and Sumin. What does she think about her mother marrying the janitor? For the first time, Hana's composure cracked. She asks about you every day. She drew you a picture. It's a dinosaur and a robot, because apparently you never answered her question about which one you like better. Marcus smiled. It was small, pained, but real. Both, he said quietly. Tell her I like both. The marriage announcement detonated across American media like a nuclear bomb. Billionaire Hana Park marries janitor in shock wedding. From mop to mogul, the Cinderella story no one saw coming. Park biomedical stock plunges 8% as CEO's marriage sparks investor panic. The press conference was held in the Grand Ballroom of the Peninsula Chicago, the same hotel where Hana had announced her company's IPO 8 years earlier. 300 journalists packed the room. Camera flashes exploded like warfare. The questions came faster than bullets. Mrs. Park, is it true you married your janitor? Marcus, how does it feel to go from cleaning toilets to living in a mansion? Is this a publicity stunt? Are you pregnant? Did he blackmail you? Hana stood at the podium in a cream Valentino suit, her expression carved from ice. Beside her, Marcus wore a charcoal Tom Ford suit that her personal tailor had fitted overnight, the first designer clothing he'd ever touched. He looked uncomfortable, out of place, like a man who'd wandered into someone else's life, which, in many ways, he had. I'll make this brief, Hana said, her voice cutting through the chaos. On March 15th, my daughter's life was saved by Marcus Reed, a member of my building staff who took 3 bullets protecting her. In the weeks since, we have developed a relationship built on mutual respect and shared values. Yesterday, we were married in a private ceremony. That is all. The room erupted. Mutual respect? You didn't even know his name. Marcus, what about the class difference? Is this a green card situation? Marcus leaned toward the microphone. The room fell silent, hungry for whatever spectacle the janitor-turned-billionaire spouse might provide. I don't have fancy words, he said slowly. I'm not used to cameras and crowds, but I'll tell you what I know. He paused. I know that Sumin Park is 6 years old and likes robots and dinosaurs. I know her favorite color is purple. I know she waves at people others ignore because she sees everyone as worth knowing. His eyes scanned the crowd, the smirking journalists, the skeptical investors, the society columnists already composing their hit pieces. Her mother raised her that way. Hannah Park taught her daughter to see invisible people. And when the bullets came for that little girl, I didn't think about class or money or what made sense. I just moved. He straightened, and despite his healing wounds, despite his discomfort, something in his posture shifted. You can write your headlines, you can make your jokes, but I made a choice to protect that child with my life, and I'd make it again, every single time. He stepped back from the microphone. The room was, for a moment, silent. The backlash was immediate and brutal. Twitter exploded with mockery. Only in America can a janitor marry up by getting shot. El Meu trended for 6 hours. Late-night hosts devoted entire segments to jokes about Marcus cleaning up in life. Society columnists in Manhattan and Beverly Hills wrote scathing pieces about Hannah's obvious mental breakdown. But the cruelest attacks came from inside Hannah's own world. The board of Park Biomedical called an emergency meeting. "This is unacceptable," Gerald Morrison, the company's CFO, slammed his hand on the mahogany table. His silver hair and tailored Brioni suit projected old money authority. "Stock is down 12%. Investors are calling for her removal. This marriage makes us look like a circus." "She's the founder and majority shareholder," reminded Dr. Patricia Vaughan, the company's chief scientific officer. "We can't remove her. We can make her life difficult enough that she removes herself." The room murmured agreement. What they didn't know, what they couldn't know, was that Hannah had installed hidden cameras and microphones in the boardroom years ago, and Marcus was watching the feed in real time from their new home in Lincoln Park. The first public event as a married couple was a charity gala at the Art Institute of Chicago. Marcus had argued against attending. He wasn't ready. The wounds hadn't fully healed. The physical therapy was exhausting, and the idea of facing Chicago's elite, the people who'd spent 2 weeks mocking him in print and online, made his stomach turn. But Hannah was firm. "If we hide, they win. We have to show them we're not ashamed. We have to show them you have nothing to be ashamed of." So Marcus put on his second Tom Ford suit, this one black, with a subtle silver tie, and accompanied his wife to the gala. The stares started the moment they walked in. Whispers followed them like shadows. Women in gowns worth more than his old apartment pretended to check their phones while taking photos. Men in tuxedos nudged each other, smirking. "That's him, the janitor. Can you imagine? She must have lost her mind. I heard he's illiterate. Probably just after her money." Marcus heard it all. His jaw tightened, but he kept walking. One hand on the small of Hannah's back, his eyes forward. Then they reached the main gallery, where a cluster of Hannah's business rivals had gathered. Korean billionaires from Seoul, tech moguls from Silicon Valley, hedge fund managers from Manhattan, and Gerald Morrison, glass of champagne in hand, wearing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Hannah, how brave of you to come tonight." His gaze slid to Marcus like he was examining something on the bottom of his shoe. "And this must be the famous janitor." "Marcus Reed," Hannah said coolly. "My husband." "Yes, well," Gerald chuckled. "We can't all marry for love, can we? Some of us have to consider things like legacy, reputation, standards." The group laughed. Marcus didn't respond. He didn't need to. Because across the room, he saw something that wiped the smirk off Gerald Morrison's face faster than any words could. Soo-Min Park, in a purple dress, running toward him with her arms outstretched. "Marcus, Marcus, you came." He caught her in a gentle hug, careful of his still healing wounds, and lifted her just high enough to make her giggle. "Hey, little one. You look beautiful tonight. Mommy picked my dress. Do you like it?" "I love it." Gerald Morrison watched, his champagne frozen halfway to his lips, as Chicago's elite witnessed something none of their money could buy. A child who loved unconditionally, and a man who had earned it with blood. The first assassination attempt came 3 weeks after the gala. Marcus was leaving physical therapy at Rush University Medical Center when a black sedan jumped the curb. He dove behind a concrete pillar as bullets shattered the glass doors behind him, his healing body screaming in protest. Chicago PD arrived within minutes. The sedan was found abandoned in Pilsen, wiped clean of prints. No arrests were made. The second attempt was subtler. A package arrived at the Lincoln Park mansion addressed to Marcus personally. A bottle of rare bourbon with a handwritten note. "Welcome to the family." Hannah's security intercepted it for routine testing. The bourbon was laced with enough cyanide to kill a horse. The third attempt was inside the company itself. Gerald Morrison called an emergency board meeting to discuss fiduciary concerns about Hannah's judgment. He'd assembled enough proxy votes to force a confidence vote, a move designed to humiliate her publicly and destabilize her control. But Marcus had been watching, listening, learning. On the morning of the board meeting, he walked into the Park Biomedical Executive Conference Room unannounced. The board members froze. "Mr. Reed," Gerald said, recovering first, "this is a private meeting, for board members." "Funny thing about private meetings." Marcus pulled a chair from the corner and sat at the head of the table, Hannah's chair. "They're only private if everyone keeps the secrets." He placed a tablet on the table and pressed play. Gerald Morrison's voice filled the room. "We can make her life difficult enough that she removes herself." Then another voice, Dr. Patricia Vaughn. "What about the husband? He's the weak link." Morrison again. "The Korean groups have resources we don't. Let them handle the janitor. Our job is to handle Hannah." The recording ended. Silence. Gerald's face had gone the color of old paper. That's illegally obtained. It's inadmissible. I'm not a lawyer, Mr. Morrison. I'm a janitor." Marcus smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "And janitors hear things, see things, notice things that important people ignore, like encrypted emails to a company in Seoul called Hanjin Holdings, like wire transfers to offshore accounts, like a meeting you had last month at the Peninsula Hotel with a man named Park Sung-ho." Gerald stood abruptly. "This is absurd. Park Sung-ho, Hannah's cousin, the one who was cut out of the family business 20 years ago, the one who's been trying to reclaim control ever since." Marcus leaned forward. "He organized the attack on Sumin. He funded the kidnapping. And you, Mr. Morrison, have been feeding him inside information for the past 3 years." The room was dead silent. Dr. Vaughn slowly pushed back her chair. "Gerald, is this true?" "Of course not. This is a setup." "The FBI is currently executing search warrants at your home in Winnetka, your office in this building, and your vacation property in Aspen." Marcus stood. "You have approximately 4 minutes before federal agents arrive here." Gerald Morrison ran. He made it to the elevator bank before 2 FBI agents in dark suits intercepted him. The news broke that evening. Park Biomedical CFO arrested in connection with kidnapping plot. Corporate conspiracy, insider trading, attempted murder linked to Korean business rivals. The janitor who cracked the case, how Marcus Reed saved Park Empire. Hannah watched the coverage from their living room, Sumin asleep on the couch beside her, while Marcus stood at the window overlooking Lincoln Park. "How did you know?" she asked quietly. I didn't. Not at first. He turned to face her. But I've been invisible my whole life, Hannah. I learned to watch, to listen, to notice the things that don't add up. He shrugged. Morrison looked at me like I was dirt on his shoe. That kind of contempt usually comes with guilt. You could have been killed. Again. Probably. Then why? Marcus looked at Sumin, curled up in her purple pajamas, her breathing soft and steady. Because she still waves at me every morning, and I'm not going to let anyone take that away. In Seoul, Park Sung-ho watched the American news coverage from his penthouse office, overlooking the Han River. His phone rang. "The Morrison connection is burned," said the voice on the other end. "The FBI has everything." "And the janitor? Still alive, still protected?" Sung-ho was silent for a long moment. "Then we stop being subtle." He lit a cigarette. "Prepare the team. We're going to Chicago." Back in Lincoln Park, Hannah found Marcus in the kitchen at midnight, unable to sleep. "The threats aren't going to stop," she said. "Morrison was just a puppet. My cousin won't give up." "I know. You could leave, take the money, disappear. Start over somewhere they'll never find you." Marcus poured himself a glass of water. "Is that what you want? I want you to be safe." "That's not what I asked." Hannah didn't answer, but she also didn't leave the kitchen. And when Marcus reached for her hand, tentatively, carefully, like a man who'd spent his whole life being told he didn't deserve to touch anything beautiful, she let him take it. "I'm not going anywhere," he said quietly. "Not until this is over." "It might never be over." "Then I guess I'm staying forever." Outside, the Chicago night was cold and dark and dangerous. But inside, something that had started as a contract was becoming something else entirely. It happened on a Sunday morning. Marcus was making breakfast, pancakes, because Sumin had announced the previous week that pancakes were the greatest human invention, when she wandered into the kitchen in her dinosaur slippers, still rubbing sleep from her eyes. "Good morning, little one." "Morning, Marcus." She climbed onto her usual stool at the kitchen island and watched him flip the pancakes with the intense focus of a 6-year-old observing magic. "Chocolate chips? Is there any other kind?" She grinned. Then, with the casual devastation that only children are capable of, she said, "Marcus, can I call you Dad?" The spatula froze mid-flip. Marcus turned slowly. Sumin was looking at him with those wide, serious eyes. The same eyes that had first seen him through the glass of a pediatric wing 11 months ago. "What? What did you say?" "I want to call you Dad." She picked at her dinosaur slippers. "Because you saved me. And you live with us now. And you make me pancakes. And..." She hesitated. "And I asked Mommy who my real dad was, and she said he left before I was born. So I never had one. But I want one. And I want it to be you." Marcus's throat closed. He'd been shot 3 times and hadn't cried. He'd faced down assassins and corporate conspiracies and the scorn of America's elite without shedding a tear. But this 6-year-old girl, in her dinosaur slippers, asking if she could call him Dad. He sank to his knees so they were at eye level. "Sumin," his voice cracked. "Are you sure?" "I asked Mommy. She said it was up to you." "You talked to your mum about this?" "Last night. She cried a little bit. But I think they were happy tears." Marcus looked toward the doorway. Hannah was standing there, still in her robe, her eyes red-rimmed. She'd been listening. "She asked me before bed," Hannah said quietly. "I told her that some decisions are too important for anyone else to make. That if she wanted you to be her father, She had to ask you herself. Marcus turned back to Su Min. I'm not a good man, Su Min. I've made mistakes. I've done things I'm not proud of. I don't know anything about being a father. Do you love me? The question was so simple, so impossible. Yes, Marcus whispered. I love you. Then that's all you need to know. Su Min reached out and put her small hand on his cheek. Mommy says love means choosing someone every day. So I'm choosing you, every day, forever. The pancakes burned. Neither of them noticed. When Su Min wrapped her arms around his neck and whispered, I love you, Dad, into his ear, Marcus Reed, the invisible man who had spent 53 years convinced he didn't matter, finally understood what it meant to be seen. Hana found him on the balcony that night, after Su Min was asleep. He was staring at the Chicago skyline, but she could tell he wasn't seeing it. You okay? I don't know. He didn't turn around. I keep waiting for someone to tell me this is a mistake, that I'm not supposed to be here, that I should go back to Englewood and my cold showers and my cleaning cart. Is that what you want? No. He finally looked at her. But I don't know if what I want matters. Hana moved to stand beside him. Their arms brushed. When I started Park Biomedical, everyone told me I was crazy. A Korean woman in biotech, in Chicago. I was too young, too foreign, too ambitious. I had everything working against me. She paused. I built my empire by ignoring what I was supposed to want and focusing on what I actually wanted. That's different. You had education, resources, connections. And you have something I never had. She turned to face him. You have a daughter who loves you unconditionally. You have a wife who... She stopped. Marcus waited. Who what? Hana's composure, the ice-cold armor she'd worn for 20 years, cracked just slightly. Who is trying very hard not to fall in love with her husband. The admission hung between them, fragile and terrifying. Trying hard? Marcus asked carefully. Or failing? I don't fail. That's not an answer. I know. They stood in silence, watching Chicago glitter beneath them. Then, slowly, Hana leaned her head against his shoulder. I married you to protect you, she said quietly. It was supposed to be a transaction, a business arrangement, nothing more. And now? Now. I don't know what it is, but it's not nothing. Marcus wrapped an arm around her. They stayed that way until the first light of dawn touched the lake. In Seoul, Park Sung-ho received a report that made his blood boil. The janitor wasn't just surviving, he was thriving. His niece, the woman who'd stolen what should have been his birthright, was falling in love with the nobody who'd ruined everything. Sung-ho made a decision. If he couldn't destroy Marcus Reed, he would destroy everything Marcus loved. He picked up his phone. Prepare the team. We're accelerating the timeline. Sir, the Chicago operation is risky. The FBI is watching. I don't care about the FBI. I don't care about the consequences. His voice was ice. I want Hana Park to suffer, and then I want her to watch everything she built burn. The line went dead. The war was about to begin. The attack came on a Wednesday. Hana was returning from a meeting in Geneva, her private jet touching down at O'Hare at 11 p.m. Marcus had wanted to pick her up personally, but security protocols demanded he stay at the mansion with Su Min. So he watched the motorcade's GPS tracker from the security room, 3 screens showing her location, the route, the escort vehicles. Everything looked normal. Until it wasn't. The convoy was crossing the Chicago River on the Wabash Avenue Bridge when the lead vehicle exploded. Marcus watched it happen in real time. The flash, the smoke, the motorcade scattering as automatic gunfire erupted from multiple directions. No! He was moving before his mind caught up, sprinting through the mansion, grabbing his phone, calling her number. Voicemail. He called her head of security. Voicemail. He called the backup team. Mr. Reed, we have a situation. The primary vehicle was hit. Mrs. Park is she alive? Unknown. We're trying to extract. The line went dead. Marcus made it to the scene in 12 minutes, breaking every traffic law in Illinois. What he found was a war zone. 2 vehicles still burning. Bodies scattered across the bridge. Police helicopters circling overhead, their searchlights cutting through the smoke. And Hannah. They'd moved her to the sidewalk, behind the cover of an overturned SUV. Her security team, what was left of it, had formed a protective perimeter. She was bleeding. A lot. Marcus. Her voice was weak, wrong. You shouldn't be here. Shut up. He dropped to his knees beside her, hands pressing against the wound in her side, blood seeping through his fingers. Where's the medical team? 2 minutes out. Her head of security, a woman named Chen, who looked like she'd been through a war, was already on the radio. EMTs are en route. She doesn't have 2 minutes. Marcus stripped off his jacket, bundled it against the wound. Hannah's face was gray. Her breathing was shallow. Marcus. She grabbed his wrist with surprising strength. If I don't make it, stop talking. Soo-min needs you. The company. I've already changed the documents. Everything transfers to you. I said stop talking. Listen to me. Her eyes were fierce, even now. Park Sung-ho did this. My cousin. He won't stop. You need to protect her. I'm not leaving you. You have to choose. I choose both. His voice echoed across the bridge, silencing even the police radios for a moment. Marcus leaned close, his forehead touching hers. I didn't survive 3 bullets to watch you die on a bridge. I didn't marry you to become a widower. And I didn't spend 6 months falling in love with you to let some jealous cousin take you away from me. Hannah's eyes widened. Falling in love. Did you think it was still a business arrangement? He laughed, but there was no humor in it. I started loving you the night you sat by my hospital bed, like it mattered whether I lived or died. The first time anyone ever looked at me like I was worth saving. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Stay with me, Marcus whispered. That's an order. I'm the CEO, she murmured. I give the orders. Not tonight. Tonight you just stay alive. The surgery took 7 hours. Marcus sat in the waiting room of Northwestern Memorial, still covered in Hannah's blood, refusing to move or eat or sleep. Soo-min was with her grandmother, Hannah's mother, a formidable woman named Dr. Park Young-hee, who'd flown in from Seoul the moment she heard the news. She'd never approved of the marriage, never accepted Marcus. But when she walked into the waiting room at 3 a.m. and saw him sitting there, wearing her daughter's blood on his hands, something shifted in her expression. You were there, she said quietly. Yes. You saved her. I tried. Dr. Park sat beside him. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then, my daughter called me last week. She said she was happy, genuinely happy, for the first time since Soo-min's father left. She paused. She said you made her feel safe, like she didn't have to carry the weight of the world alone. Marcus didn't know what to say. I didn't approve of this marriage. I thought you were after her money, her status. Dr. Park turned to look at him. I was wrong. Ma'am, Eomionim. Marcus blinked. Sorry. It means mother-in-law. In Korean. She almost smiled. If you're going to be part of this family, you should learn to say it properly. Before Marcus could respond, the surgeon emerged. She's stable, he said. It was close. Another few minutes of blood loss. He shook his head. But she's going to make it. Marcus's legs gave out. He sat down hard on the waiting room floor, his head in his bloody hands, and finally let himself breathe. Hana woke up the next morning. The first thing she saw was Marcus asleep in the chair beside her bed, still wearing the clothes from the bridge, still covered in dried blood. She reached out and touched his hand. He woke instantly. "Hey," she whispered. "Hey, yourself. You look terrible. You got shot." "That's fair." She squeezed his fingers. "Did you mean it? What you said on the bridge?" Marcus brought her hand to his lips. "Every word. Even the part about falling in love?" "Especially that part." Hana smiled, small, pained, but real. I think I fell first. I just didn't want to admit it. Classic CEO. Always has to be in control. Shut up and kiss me." He did. And somewhere in Seoul, Park Sung-ho received word that his assassination attempt had failed. He would not fail again. The counterattack took 3 months to prepare. Hana recovered slowly, her body healing, her rage calcifying into something cold and strategic. Marcus watched her transform from victim to predator, her brilliant mind turning fully toward the destruction of everyone who had tried to take her family. "We could go to the authorities," Marcus said one night, reviewing the evidence they'd assembled. "The FBI already has Morrison. They could build a case against Sung-ho. The FBI operates within the law." Hana's smile didn't reach her eyes. "My cousin doesn't. If we play by the rules, he'll slip away. He has properties in a dozen countries, connections to governments that won't extradite. The moment he senses the net closing, he vanishes. So what's the alternative? We destroy him the way he tried to destroy me, publicly, completely, in a way that leaves him nowhere to hide." The plan was elegant in its brutality. Park Biomedical had recently developed a revolutionary gene therapy treatment for a rare childhood disease. The clinical trials had been a stunning success, and the FDA approval announcement was scheduled for a major press event in Washington, D.C., an event that would be attended by senators, cabinet members, and every major business journalist in America. Park Sung-ho had been quietly shorting Park Biomedical stock for months, betting that the company would collapse under the weight of scandal. He'd also been positioning himself to acquire the patents through a series of shell companies. What he didn't know was that Hana had found everything. Every encrypted communication, every wire transfer, every meeting with Morrison, every connection to the kidnapping, the assassination attempts, the years of corporate espionage. And she was going to reveal it all on live television. The press event was held at the Willard Hotel in Washington, 2 blocks from the White House. 300 journalists packed the ballroom. Camera crews from every major network set up in the back. Politicians in tailored suits mingled with biotech executives and patient advocacy groups. Marcus stood at Hana's side, dressed in a navy suit with a silver tie, the same colors as the Park Biomedical logo. "You sure about this?" he murmured as they approached the stage. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." She took the podium. The cameras focused, and Hana Park began to speak. "Today was supposed to be a celebration," she said. "A moment to announce that Park Biomedical has achieved FDA approval for a treatment that will save thousands of children's lives." She paused. "And it is still that moment. This treatment is real. This victory is real, and it belongs to the brilliant scientists, doctors, and researchers who made it possible. Applause rippled through the room. But today is also something else. Hannah's voice hardened. Today is the day I reveal the truth about the people who tried to destroy everything we've built. The room went silent. Over the next 45 minutes, Hannah laid out the entire conspiracy. The slides showed everything. The financial documents linking Morrison to Park Sung-ho. The encrypted communications planning the kidnapping. The wire transfers to offshore accounts. The connection between the assassination attempts and Korean organized crime. The testimony of former employees who'd witnessed Morrison's betrayal. And through it all, Marcus stood beside her. Not speaking, not drawing attention, just present. A visible reminder that the invisible man had become untouchable. The aftermath was swift and devastating. Park Sung-ho was arrested in Seoul the following morning, extradited to the United States on charges including conspiracy to kidnap, attempted murder, securities fraud, and racketeering. Morrison pleaded guilty and agreed to testify against his co-conspirators. Park biomedical stock surged 23% as investors rushed to support the company that had not only survived a major attack, but had exposed and destroyed its enemies. And the marriage that had started as a contract. The world finally understood. "Mrs. Park," a journalist shouted at the press conference that followed. "You married Marcus Reed for protection. Is this still a business arrangement?" Hannah looked at her husband. Marcus looked back. And then, in front of 300 journalists and a dozen live cameras, she reached into her pocket and pulled out a single piece of paper. The marriage contract. The original document, signed the night Marcus had woken up in that hospital bed. A cold, legal arrangement that specified protection, testimony, and a dignified exit once the threat was neutralized. Hannah held it up for the cameras. Then she pulled out a lighter and set it on fire. The room gasped as the paper burned, flames consuming the words that had defined their relationship for so long. "That was the contract," Hannah said, dropping the ashes to the floor. "This is the marriage." She turned to Marcus. "I was supposed to marry you for protection. I was supposed to keep it professional. I was supposed to let you go once it was safe." Her voice cracked, just slightly. But somewhere between the bullets and the boardrooms, between the threats and the pancakes, between watching you love my daughter like she was your own, I fell in love with you. Marcus stepped forward. "I was supposed to be invisible," he said. "A nobody who cleaned floors and disappeared. I wasn't supposed to marry billionaires or raise little girls or take bullets for strangers." He took her hand. "But you saw me. Your daughter saw me. And for the first time in my life, I understood what it meant to be real." He pulled her close. "I don't want a contract. I don't want an arrangement. I want a marriage, a real one, for as long as we both live." Hannah smiled through tears. "Is that a proposal?" "Consider it a renewal." They kissed. The cameras flashed. And across America, millions of people watched the janitor and the billionaire choose each other. Not for protection, not for power, but for love. 1 year later, the Park family mansion in Lincoln Park had changed. There were drawings taped to the refrigerator now, dinosaurs and robots mostly, signed Sue Min with careful 6-year-old letters. There was a basketball hoop in the driveway, where Marcus spent weekends teaching his daughter layups. There were family photos on every surface, not the staged corporate portraits that had hung there before, but candid shots of birthday parties and beach vacations and lazy Sunday mornings. It looked like a home. Marcus stood at the window of his office, his actual office, with his name on the door, and watched the sunrise over Lake Michigan. A year ago, he'd been pushing a cleaning cart through this building. He'd owned 2 pairs of pants and a studio apartment with cold water. He'd been nobody. Now he sat on the board of Park Biomedical as executive director of community relations, overseeing the company's charitable initiatives. He'd established a foundation that provided job training and education to cleaning staff and service workers across Chicago. He'd testified before Congress about corporate corruption and the treatment of invisible workers. He'd become visible. But the title that mattered most was the one Soo-min had given him. Dad. You're thinking too hard again. Hana appeared in the doorway, 2 cups of coffee in her hands. She was wearing one of his old t-shirts and yoga pants, a far cry from the Valentino suits and Louboutin heels of her CEO persona. This was the Hana only he got to see. Just remembering, Marcus said, accepting the coffee. Remembering what? The night you asked me to marry you. Hana smiled. The romantic proposal in the hospital room, surrounded by beeping machines and IV drips. I still think about what would have happened if I'd said no. You wouldn't have. You sound confident. I know you, Marcus Reed. She moved to stand beside him. You're the man who runs toward gunfire, who takes bullets for children he doesn't know, who sees a mother drowning in fear and decides to throw her a lifeline. She kissed his cheek. You were never going to say no. They stood together, watching the lights spread across the city. Sung-ho's trial starts next week, Hana said. I know. They want us both to testify. I know that too. Are you ready? Marcus turned to face her. A year ago, I was ready to die for your daughter. I'm definitely ready to talk to some lawyers. He smiled. Besides, the sooner that man is convicted, the sooner we can focus on what matters. What matters? Everything we're building, the foundation, the family, the future. Hana set down her coffee and wrapped her arms around his neck. You know, she said thoughtfully, when I started Park Biomedical, I thought success meant patents and profits, market cap and magazine covers. She paused. I was wrong. About what? Success. She looked up at him. Success is this. You and me and Soo-min, pancakes on Sunday, basketball in the driveway, a house that feels like a home instead of a fortress. That's very un-CEO of you. I'm a work in progress. We all are. Downstairs, Soo-min was waiting at the breakfast table with an announcement. I made a decision, she said very seriously, as Marcus and Hana took their seats. What kind of decision? Marcus asked. About what I want to be when I grow up. Hana raised an eyebrow. Last week, you wanted to be a dinosaur astronaut. I changed my mind. Soo-min took a deep breath. I want to be like Daddy. Like me? Marcus was genuinely surprised. You want to clean buildings? No, silly. She rolled her eyes with the exasperated patience of a 7-year-old. I want to help people, like you helped me, like you helped the workers at your foundation, like you helped Mommy when she was sad and scared. Marcus's throat tightened. I want to be someone who sees invisible people, Soo-min continued. Someone who makes them feel real. Hana reached across the table and took Marcus's hand. I think, she said quietly, that's the best thing anyone could grow up to be. That evening, after dinner and bedtime stories, and the nightly routine that Marcus had come to treasure more than anything he'd ever owned, he stood on the balcony one last time. Chicago sprawled beneath him, the same city he'd lived in for 53 years, though it looked different now. Not the streets of Englewood, where survival was the only ambition. Not the invisible hours of night shifts, where he'd moved through a world that didn't see him. This was his city now, his home, his legacy. The door slid open behind him. "Coming to bed?" Hannah asked. "In a minute." She joined him at the railing. "What are you thinking about?" "How different things could have been. If I hadn't taken those bullets, if you hadn't offered the contract, if any single moment had gone differently. But they didn't." "No." He turned to look at her. This brilliant, fierce, beautiful woman who had somehow chosen him. "They didn't. Marcus? Yeah? I love you." It still hit him every time. The simplicity of it. The impossibility. "I love you too." They stood together as the stars emerged over Lake Michigan. Two people who had found each other in the chaos of violence and power and money, and had chosen something real. Marcus Reed had spent his whole life being invisible. But now, finally, he was seen. And he was never going back. If this story touched your heart, smash that subscribe button and share it with someone who believes in impossible love. And remember, the people who change your life aren't always the ones with power and money. Sometimes they're the ones pushing cleaning carts through buildings, waiting to be seen. Until next time.